Welcome to the WeHa.com Roundtable. I'm John Lyons, joined as always by the managing editor of WeHa.com, Ronni Newton. We are going to be talking about real estate today. With us are two local realtors, Carl Lance, who is the current president of the Connecticut Realtors Association, and Tracy Hellerbach, who also works in his office. We are going to talk about the state of the market here in West Hartford and Connecticut in general. We're going to talk about inventory levels. We're going to talk about the rental market. And the big story, we're going to talk about the new commission structure that is going to take effect nationally. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what brought that on. Before I get into the introduction of our guests, we do have a couple of breaking stories, so we want you to keep an eye on weha.com over the next day. The big story is a major house fire here in town. Ronnie literally raced over from there covering it to get to the studio, made it on time. No injuries reported,
correct,
which is good news. But the sad news is the house is likely pretty severely damaged.
It's pretty damaged, yes.
So so keep an eye on weha.com for that. We also have a major rain event coming tomorrow. They're expecting another 2 or 3 inches, possibly 4 inches of rain, which we don't need. We're lucky. We're just missing the snow. You go 100 or so miles north, it's going to be snow. And then tomorrow at 3 p.m., which is Wednesday 3 p.m., and then we will be repeating the show. It'll be repeated here, and we'll put it on all the websites as well. We're going to be doing an eclipse special. We have an ophthalmologist who's going to discuss eye safety and eye care, and we have a teacher from Sedgwick who is going to be talking about the technology and the science behind an eclipse and why it happens and what the difference between an annular eclipse and a total eclipse. I did not know the difference. So, but we won't quiz you guys on that because you're not here to talk about the eclipse.
Don't quiz me on it either.
So, okay.
I just got my glasses. I'm ready.
24 hours ago, I wouldn't have known either. So,
my glasses
anyway.
are coming from Amazon before 10 o'clock tonight.
So anyway, yeah, we just got ours. They just arrived today, so we're good to go. I'm putting up my wife, who's off camera here. So all right, let's talk a little bit. Give us 1-2 sentence on each of your backgrounds, Carl and Tracy. How long in the industry? What brought you to real estate? What do you do?
I'll go first. Carl Lance, Coldwell banker, current president of CT Realtors. I have been in this business 20 long years and grew up with it. My father was a realtor for almost 40 years, and I worked with him until he retired about 4 years ago. And he dragged me into it. He said, "Come, I need your help." So I've been helping people ever since.
Tracy?
I have been a realtor since 2007 and literally joined Coldwell Banker and have never left. It's been a great place to work. I started when the market was still up and kind of crashed, and so
about a week.
Yeah, in 2008, and I've seen a lot in the 17 years, and I've helped buyers and sellers, and I love what I do. It's just a passion.
Now this is not the topic at all, but I have to ask you this question because I'm fascinated. You know, you just in terms of your timing and entering this as a career, how did you survive 2008, 9, 10? How did you get through it as a brand new agent trying to find your way?
I had no track record. So it wasn't like I was having a bad year because I had no track record. So whatever I did was a bonus. And I just looked forward. I really did.
That's smart. Yeah.
I just looked forward, and here we are 17 years later.
There you go. So good
Yeah.
story. So interesting story. So I want to start with just the market in general, and then I've got a little bit of intro I'm going to read when we get into the new commissions and the lawsuits and all that, which had nothing to do with these folks, had nothing to do with anybody in our town, to be clear. But so Carl, you and I talk probably weekly. I ask you this question all the time, but talk to us a little bit about the housing stock in Connecticut, housing availability in West Hartford in terms of purchasing. What's going on right now?
Severe lack of inventory. That's the story. The story is that
Why?
we are at all-time lows. It's sort of a convergence of several different things. It's not like one thing took all the houses off the market. There's a lot of buyer demand, but that's not the driving force behind the low inventory. There has been lack of construction since the 2008 crisis. The United States is down 5 million units based on population growth over that time frame and how much we've underbuilt. I couldn't tell you what the percentage of that is in Connecticut, but it certainly feels like it's a good chunk. And then the other thing that we have working against us right now is lots of people refinanced their house over the last 4 or 5 years or bought a house. And if you have that awesome 2%, 3% interest rate, it's a much harder pill to swallow to buy a more expensive house that is at 6.5%. So as interest rates come down, we might see a little more come on the market, but for now, it's still very, very competitive. I mean, I think I looked today, I think there was like 22 houses,
Wow.
something in that neighborhood.
And it's across all price ranges?
That is
Oh, yeah.
single family and condo. Yes, if you add multifamily or commercial units, there's a few more, but not a lot.
And of those 22, probably 10 have been sitting on the market for a long time. So
Yeah.
the rest of them are,
A dozen to pick from,
yeah.
more than likely.
Remember those quaint old days when the spring market meant, there were houses available?
Hundreds.
Well, just for an example, I remember in 2008 when the downturn hit and nobody wanted to buy a house, we had well over 300 houses on the market in West Hartford. So we're not even a tenth of what we were at our peak in the worst of times in 2008.
The other thing, and I know this is not your area of expertise, but so we live way over on the southwest portion of town, and there's actually a brand new road and a brand new development going in an area that we didn't even know was West Hartford. And we've looked over there, and there's a beautiful 3,500 square foot house that's gone up, and their construction cost per foot has probably been in excess of $350 a square foot. How does somebody build a house with construction costs that high?
Well, that certainly leads to the price of those houses. It's very difficult right now in Connecticut between the cost of land and the cost of construction to build anything that would be remotely in the affordable bracket. Multi-units would be the only way you could really get a lower price point on a property like that. But I mean, those houses are in excess of $1 million, which is why, $300 a square foot or more on construction costs. And it's the same thing on renovation too. I mean, I have a lot of buyers who bought houses and then did work on them, and that's the going rate that you're going to be paying to get work done these days.
It's tough. It's
expensive,
it's a
for sure.
tough time for real estate.
I mean,
so.
I even see price per square foot on existing homes in highly desirable neighborhoods in good condition beyond $350 a square foot.
Wow.
For an existing property. So I can totally see how new construction could be at that number.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. The other thing, Tracy, I'll talk to you, and if you haven't had any houses on the market recently, I'll pivot to Carl, but if you've sold a house recently for a client, how many offers are you getting?
It definitely ranges, and I've had a house recently that had 6 offers, but there were actually 2 other houses in the neighborhood that were on the market, so they all got the same, 6 offers, but it still sold grossly over asking. And then I had a condo in Newington that had 12 offers, and I just listed 2 properties yesterday, one condo who's gotten quite a number of showings, and then a single family home. I think we're up to 30 something showings already.
Wow.
In 24 hours.
Now, I saw that house, and I saw it on your social media, and I looked up what it had sold for the last time it sold back in 2019, I think it was, and it's the asking price is a lot higher than that now. How do you even, I'm sorry for stepping on your convention, but how do you even come up with an asking price that is, is it just a shot in the dark now? Is it based on comparables and knowing that it's going to be probably bid up well above that asking price? Is it a lot harder?
That's an excellent question. Well, we do look at comparable sales. A lot of what goes into it is actually talking to other agents to find out the properties that are under contract and about what they're going to be selling for, because the closed sales, are what the consumer can see, but we as agents kind of need to know where similar properties are landing. Mm-hmm. So we do price them appropriately to what are closed sales, but with the expectation that they will likely sell higher when some of these under contract properties close. Does that,
Yeah.
And full disclosure for those folks watching, Carl has represented my wife and I now for over 5 years. And I didn't know this, but Tracy's represented Ronnie's family in the
She
past.
helped my daughter and my son-in-law buy a house.
Yeah.
So we
It
found
was-
that out as we were getting ready to go on air.
I've
so.
actually known Tracy for, I don't
Yeah.
know, since our kids were
20-something
in
years.
kindergarten.
So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Probably, yeah, almost since we moved here, but,
Yeah.
but you didn't know that, and I had nothing to do with asking Tracy to be a guest, so
That'd be
it's
me.
not, no, it's not nepotism.
It was a surprise.
It was a
With
very
Carl,
nice
it's,
surprise.
as always, you know, it's complete
Yes.
nepotism with Carl. So I'm going to throw myself under the bus on that one. But so Carl, you know, I know it's impossible. I see these things pop up on Neighbors and Friends occasionally, and they're gone in a minute. Rental availability. Talk a little bit about what's out there on the rental market.
Same thing. I mean, it's maybe not quite as bad as purchase, but there's definitely a lack of rentals. There's a lot under construction in West Hartford.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna talk
think
about
Ronnie
that.
did an article. I think you did a big article about the units that are being built and all the stuff that's going up around the center. But a lot of those are high end, and not everybody is looking for a high end rental. But I think that the people that are looking for single family rentals, you know, you're moving here with your family, you want to be here for a little bit before you decide where you want to buy. That's a really tough one. That's one that I've had several people have a hard time finding something like that. And again, prices are way up on rentals. The amount of applicants you're going to get is going to be just like the offers. You know, you're going to get a huge pile of people that want one place. So then you're weeding through and seeing who's got the best credit, who's got the best income, who's got the best references, and trying to pick the right person. But it's tough. It's tough on both ends, buying, selling, and renting.
So you alluded to it in your answer. There is a ton of new projects. I mean, One Park is one. Obviously, it's going through the approvals process now. In full disclosure, I am on the zoning committee, so I have to be a little cautious with what I say. But 1,700 was already passed, so we'll talk about 1,700 Asylum. 500 units, or maybe I'm high
No,
now.
1,700 hasn't passed.
It hasn't passed
passed the
council.
wetlands, but it
that's
has
right.
a hearing
Yeah, that's
on,
right. I'm sorry. It's past wetlands.
April
Let me get this
15th,
right.
yeah.
Yep. So what?
One park, the corner of Park and
yeah.
Prospect.
What? I mean,
is
are
being
these
occupied
making
now.
a dent? Are they making a dent in the housing shortage?
No.
No. Okay.
No,
So
I don't.
it's just-
I
yeah,
don't, I don't think they are.
tough
I
situation.
wish. One of the things I wished. I mean, at the 1,700 Asylum, I really wished that there was a little more opportunity for people to purchase there. I know that the metric for the builders right now is in the rental. With the building costs being so high, it's better to spread it out over
Right.
30 years
Yep.
renting it. But seeing a project like that, if even half of that, like Blueback Square, we're right next to Blueback Square, if half of that was condos instead of apartments, that would make a huge difference, I think.
Right.
Because I think that would be the place where a lot of those renters might even become owners. It'd be a nice
There is
add-in.
one project that is going to break ground, I'm not sure when, but the sign is up now, coming soon, Center Park Place,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
behind Farmington Avenue in LaSalle.
That's
And those will
actually-
be,
yeah.
condos.
Yep.
Yep.
But that's 58 units, I think, so it's,
And I believe the starting price per square foot on them, I heard, is $1,000 a square foot.
wow,
Yes.
I heard.
wow.
That was
Very
one of-
similar
that
to
was
those
one
in
of-
Blueback, though. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
similar to,
Yeah.
that's the new building price for what the Blueback condos would get nowadays.
So $350 seems like a bargain for
Yeah,
new
really.
construction.
Yeah. Build it. So
But
build it yourself.
Part of the issue there is the cost of building the underground parking,
I'm sure.
and that's
Yeah, and it's going to be
multi-level.
luxury. Yeah,
Very high end.
very
so,
high end.
So the big reason we wanted you guys on, if you Google search the term real estate and lawsuit, a litany of things come up, most of it appearing bad for the industry and the National Association of Realtors. A $1.8 billion verdict against them is pending in a federal case, and there's a $418 million settlement that's being paid by the Chicago-based association in another case. This all stems from a dispute of how commissions are calculated and paid. I wrote this out because it's really complicated. Historically, commissions were paid by the seller and split equally between the seller agent and the buyer agent. In the class action lawsuit, sellers allege that they should not, and Carl, stop me if I'm wrong on any of this, that they should not be responsible for paying commission to the buyer's agent for the buyer, and the courts agreed. This has upended the industry and created a complex labyrinth of workarounds, including seller rebates at closings, new contracts between buyer agents, and buyers that have to be signed for each house, buyer contracts that have to be signed for each house they are looking at, and other creative methods. Further complicating matters is state and FHA lending laws, which can limit seller options sellers have to ensure buyer agent compensation and restrict a buyer or cause an inability of the buyers to be able to buy the house because they cannot afford to pay 3% cash at closing. Did I pretty much hit it? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So let's go back in time. What happened? Why did it happen?
I'll start with your last statement, the percentage you listed. First off, Connecticut and across the country, commissions are not set by any standard, any law, or any principle. You know, you can negotiate that with your agent on both sides. And when you purchased, you signed a buyer agency agreement with me. We talked about commissions. At that point, there was not the push against the cooperative compensation that they're having right now. So what I could say to you was, hey, this seller is offering out this. This is what you owe me. It's covered. You're good to go. The bigger problem that we're starting to see is that many buyers don't have that cash wherewithal to be able to pay a buyer's agent, and we don't want people to go without. The tenant argument on this was that buyers don't need representation. And I'd like to say that's like going into court without an attorney. You know, if you go in, if you have a lawsuit and you're getting sued by somebody, you could just say, well, I'm going to have the same attorney rep me as the person who's suing me. You know, because then we only have to pay one attorney commission. And that just doesn't work out well. And I think it's the same thing with houses. I think you need to have your own advocate. I think you need to have somebody that is working on your behalf. It's a fiduciary responsibility, so we are doing our best to get you the best deal, the best terms, the best price. These days, I don't know if that's really a case. You know, now it's just to get it for you in today's market. It's not the best price, it's the price that will win it. But a lot of this, I mean, I think if we were in the market we were in pre-COVID, people would understand. I mean, if houses didn't sell in 2 days, you know, they would see that there's a lot more to it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss out on is all of the things we do as realtors to facilitate the process. I mean, you know, the home inspection, walking you through the home inspection, financing, making sure that your mortgage goes through, potential pitfalls, knowing neighborhoods, knowing what's around you, all of those little bits and pieces that we bring to the table to help our buyers and sellers. And I think that's what was missed in this entire lawsuit.
Well, even before you get to that point, just, I mean, knowing what we, you know, worked with you and my daughter and her then fiance were house hunting, how many houses they looked at, and you taught us about what I can remember what kind of wiring,
knob and tube.
Knob
knob and
and
tube
tube.
wiring. I
Oh.
hadn't heard about that, and you know, we had to get an inspector to come in and look at the foundation in one of these houses because it looked like it was crumbling, and they ended up walking away. And the garage was ready to fall down, and that house actually has a new garage. That's not where my daughter lives now, but I mean, there's so much that you did. Probably way more now than when we bought our house in 1998, what our real estate agent went through then. I don't remember it being quite as extensive.
You know, there's a lot that goes into representing buyers, and Carl and I and so many realtors take it so seriously. We really are protecting them like their family, and we want to make sure that they are getting a good house and a good property, and why would you want to go without that? And I think that's really the crux of the situation, is there could be a period of chaos where people are going to try to do this on their own and then realize that it's representation is for a buyer is key.
Unintended consequences coming down the pike, I think. And as you mentioned, Ronnie, you bought your house in 1998. Connecticut adopted buyer agency in state statute in 1996. We were one of the first states in the country to do it. So anytime you go and see a property, you should be having, unless you are going with the listing agency. So if you want to see a Coldwell Banker house, we could show it to you, but we would have to then disclose we represent the seller. We don't represent you at this point. So, you know, don't tell me you won the lotto and you're ready to pay whatever they want. I don't want to know it. But Connecticut adopted that in 1996, and that's one of the terms that is part of the settlement negotiations, or the settlement that they're hopefully going to adopt. That states that don't have that, if you're working with a realtor in an MLS, that you are required to have those buyer agency agreements, which I think that's a good thing because we've had it forever, and I that is one thing that I think is a positive.
Agreed.
So that, yeah, okay. So what, moving from buyer agency to commissions, I talked about in the introduction some of the approaches that folks are taking. You happened to show us a house a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we walked in and you put a contract in front of us and I didn't read it and I signed it and then realized after the fact I probably should have read it. And
I did explain it. I did explain it to him.
He did explain it to me.
I did explain it to him. I
It
didn't
was
just
my
say
fault. I'm the one who
Yeah.
didn't read it. Carl did his job. So
Yes.
I'll defend Carl
So what
on
do
this
you
one.
own now?
So yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just, there was a house that was kind of interesting and it was just, I think we all kind of wanted to see it. So, but you shared with me some of the things that are happening, and then that's going to dovetail into my other question where, hey, I'm buying a house. Why not I just have the seller, why don't I just roll into my loan the extra 10 or 15 grand it's going to cost me to pay my agent? Talk about those two things.
So for federal lending law, there are certain things that you can have in a credit from a seller. So if you say, hey, I'm just going to over borrow a little bit, that's the way I explain those closing cost credits that some people do. Some people will do it for a repair. Some people will do it because they just don't have a ton of cash. That may be one of the vehicles that will cover realtors' commissions on the buy side. But there are limitations to that. It actually can't say, give back a percentage or a dollar figure for realtor commission. It has to go for closing costs, and then you would have the cash that you have set aside for closing costs to pay the commission. It's one of those semantic things that you're not allowed to, kind of campaign financing kind of thing, where you can't give money to this, you can give money to that. So it's sort of shifting around where the money's coming from. But I
And
think
then do you contractually somehow have something, in writing so that you know that if they're getting this extra cash that you're going to be getting it?
it's set up beforehand, yes. I mean,
Okay.
that's the buyer agency
Okay.
agreement. When John signed his buyer agency agreement that he didn't read, but I did explain, it laid out my commission.
Okay.
And that's always been part of the state statute, is that the commission that's being paid is in the buyer agency agreement.
I never knew 7% was the new rate too, Carl. I was shocked. I was like, all right, Carl,
I wish.
tell me 7%.
I wish.
I'll sign right here, Carl.
That John got for me.
Exactly. So,
No. I mean, I think that, well, first of all, we work hard. I can tell you that. I've done deals with Tracy, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted her here tonight, because she's a great agent to work with. And the things that we come in contact with doing this job, we are certainly earning whatever we're being paid. That I can tell you. And I can also tell you that there are different business models in real estate. There are some companies that do fee for service. So you could hire them just to do a baseline service model, and they get either a lower percentage or a flat fee. But I truly feel like you get what you pay for. If you want top tier service, you're going to have to pay for it. Just like with an attorney, with a mechanic, with whatever you're doing in life, you need to pay for what you're getting. And that's, if somebody doesn't want the service or doesn't need it, that's fine. Then maybe I'm not the realtor for them.
do you
Yeah.
see it? And I think this is it's kind of an unprecedented time because the demand and the supply is just so out of whack right now, relative to history. And
Yeah.
but let's say we have interest rates really come down a bit. We see a little bit of a return to equilibrium. Do you see it impacting the housing market at any point?
In terms of?
In terms of slowing it down, putting sellers on the sideline, buyers on the sidelines.
I don't think that it's gonna slow it down. One of the I was on an interview recently, and they said, "Do you think this is going to affect house prices?" That's one of the big things they say. Oh, well, if we take all these commission dollars out of the equation, think about what's going to happen to house prices. You can ask Tracy, but I'm seeing houses selling 15, 20, 25% over asking. Not everyone, but many of them. And they're worried about the little piece that's us getting paid for doing our job.
Right.
Do you think
In
it'll
this
keep
market.
people out of
that's
the
not.
market, though, keep potential new agents or potential new realtors from
Certainly will make
joining
it
the
tough.
market.
Yeah,
It certainly will
won't
make it
be-
tougher.
Yes, it will not be easy to be able to show your value to somebody that you're saying, look, you're going to need to be able to pay this commission if you have no experience. So I think it's definitely going to be harder for them, for sure.
I wonder if that'll. Yeah, it's interesting. That's another show, I think. That's another show. I'll just leave it at
That's
that.
a whole nother show.
Carl and Tracy and Carl. You know, Carl's involved politically because of his role as president of the association. So you do. I don't know. I know you don't do some lobbying, but your organization lobbies.
Yeah. I do testify. I go to the State House. I go to the Capitol.
So would it make sense to lobby the feds to maybe adjust that FHA restriction where commissions could be built into a deal?
I'm sure that's already in works.
Okay.
The bigger one, and this is one that I think is probably the biggest unintended consequence, is the VA. On a VA loan, there are certain things. First of all of our veterans deserve that program 100%. That is a huge bonus, and they should be able to take advantage of it. Zero down loans, low interest, giving back to the people who gave to our country. But there are certain things that they can't pay for. Like one of the weird ones is they can't pay for the termite inspection. So per federal law, VA lending, if a veteran wants to buy a house, the homeowner has to pay the $100 or whatever to get a termite inspection. One of the other things they can't pay is buyer agency fees. So even if they did that closing cost credit where they said, okay, well, I'll just borrow a little extra and use it for my closing costs and then pay my agent, they are not allowed by law to do that. And that's something that I know we're already lobbying on. I know there's already a movement to try and fix that.
Well, Congress is working so well right now. I bet this is going to sail through. I'm confident.
It's not April Fool's Day anymore, Don.
It's one of the few things I think that both sides can dive in on, though, is veterans. Oftentimes,
Right.
I mean, I think they've been left out a little in the cold a few times,
no
but
question.
hopefully something like this won't get left on the back burner and it will get taken care of sooner rather than later, because I certainly wouldn't want them to go out without buyer representation.
Get your organization to start lobbying, because I think it's an important one, particularly for our veterans. I mean, you really.
We're definitely on it. I can tell you that that's already on our agenda. That's why I brought it up. That's on our agenda for sure. I'm going to DC in May. So,
Are you?
yeah.
I'm jealous. I love DC. So that's another show. Yet another show. So I'll talk about DC. So
I
Ronnie.
lived there for 14
I
years.
know,
I can
I'm
talk about
envious.
too.
Yeah, anybody will listen. I always tell DC is about my favorite place on earth to visit. It's just so exciting to
One
learn
of mine
about our
too.
history and have fun. So, Ronnie, any last questions for you? I've covered everything. I think we covered a lot here.
No, I don't think so.
So, all right. Well, on that note, we're going to sign off for Carl, Tracy, Ronnie. I'm John, and Ronnie and I will see you tomorrow with another panel of experts talking about the eclipse and eye safety. So we'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.